West Virginia mountain melody. There's a new river singing to me. Oh, this time it's wild and free. Your West Virginia mountain melodies.
Welcome to Around and About the Clarksburg History Museum, and I'm your host, Martha Jett. And in celebration of our newest exhibit to our collection, we are very excited to have with us today a singer, songwriter, and an actor born right here in Clarksburg. And I speak of none other than Mayf Nutter. Mayf, thank you for joining us today. Welcome to our podcast.
Well, thank you so much. It's an honor for me from back here in California. Can you imagine? You're in West Virginia. I'm in California, and we're talking together.
And we have snow here, and I bet you have beautiful blue skies there.
Yeah, and sunshine. Lots of it.
Lucky.
Yeah.
Well, I always get started on my interviews with people. I'd love to know a little bit about their early life. And I remember you did an interview with Lou Dobbins here in Clarksburg, and you were telling the story about when your mother went into labor with you. So can you kind of relate that story to us? Because it was really a good story.
Okay. Well, geographically, there's a place called Jane Lou, West Virginia.
Yeah.
And there's a road there called Two-Lick Run Road. And that's because it runs alongside a creek called Two-Lick Run. And it's called Two-Lick Run because at the where it started, there are two salt licks where the deer and all the animals that like to lick a salt lick would come. And there are about 6 different farm families from the West Fork River all the way to the end of Two Lick there. Back in the day, 1940s, actually 1941 is when this happened, the Jewel Tea Company would send their delivery man and truck out through the country there, not only in Jane Lou, but lots of other places. And on this day, the driver drove up into the lawn there at my Aunt Wanda's house. That was my mother's sister. And my mother's name is Anna. And so he gets out of his delivery truck there, and he's walking up toward the door, and Wanda comes trotting out of the door and he says, "Hi, Wanda, how you doing?" She said, "Well, I'm fine, but Anna's about to have that baby." And Bernie, that's her husband, is over at the stock market, and he took the truck, and that's the only vehicle we have. And this kid was going to be the first one in our family born in a hospital. But he's going to be born right here in this house if he doesn't get there. And the driver said, "Here, put her in the truck, and I'll take her in right now to Clarksburg Hospital." And a new hospital had just recently been built there. Can't think of the name of it right. St. Mary's Hospital. That's right. Yeah. So anyway, Anna and jumps in the car with the baby in her tummy, and they start driving the 19 or so miles over unpaved, crooked, rocky, hilly roads on the way to Clarksburg. And they're bumping and the driver says, "If this is a boy, Anna, you're going to name him after me, ain't you?" And she said, "Yeah, anything. Just don't make this baby born in this truck." So anyway, they end up St. Mary's Hospital, and the driver's name was Mayfred, Mayfred, Mayfred Metcalf. And the last I talked to him, he lived in, can you believe it, Nutter Fort. So anyway, that's the story of how I was born, and they actually even misspelled my name on my birth certificate. And my wonderful dad had to go in and straighten that out. And that was the early day that I can tell you about. But, did you want me to go from there?
That is how you got your name then, from the tea
well,
driver.
kind of. Everybody in the family, and even in school, up until I was 15 years old, everybody called me Mayfred, kind of the West Virginia mispronunciation of Mayfred, Mayfred. And anyway, when I was 15 years old, I was playing Babe Ruth League baseball, and I was the pitcher. And at the end of the season, every team names their most valuable player, and those valuable players are put together, and they're called the All-Star team. And I was on the All-Star team, and we defeated all the other All-Stars there in Harrison County, and ended up being the West Virginia State All-Star champions of the Babe Ruth League. And I was 15 years old. In those days, we didn't have the telephones like we're talking about right now, long distance. Somebody could pick up the phone and boom, talk right away. So we were in a bus traveling all around the United States, beating the other All-Stars from the other states on our way to the World Series, the Babe Ruth League World Series. We even played a night game at the St. Louis Cardinals Stadium, and that has become a historical one for us, because I got when the baseball series ended, I was not yet 16, so Mom had to drive me to the football practice. It always started in September or August, rather, or before school started in Bridgeport. So she drove me down to the field house, and I got out of the car and just started getting some things out, and somebody said, "Oh, hey, Mayf, hey, Mayf." And I turned around and looked behind me, and all around, who was he yelling at? And it was the coach. And he came over and put his arm around my neck, and we walked in. He said, "Boy, I'm so glad to see you. Everybody's been wondering when you're going to get back. And, you did such a good job there. Undefeated pitcher, are you? Well, you're not going to do a whole lot of pitcher as a quarterback, but we'll let you throw the ball a little bit." And he opened up the door to the field house there, and I don't know if it's still there or not, but anyway, I opened the door, and there all these guys were putting their shoulder pads on, getting ready for football practice, and they all said, "Mayf, hey, Mayf is here, Mayf, Mayf, Mayf." And what in the world is going? And the coach walked me over to a bulletin board that was on the wall there, and there was an 8x10 black and white picture of me throwing the ball in St. Louis Cardinal Stadium at night, and it was a full taking of my face, as well as being in action there. And the writer of the sports section down in Charleston for the newspaper was misspelling my name all this time. He called me Manfred and Melville and all kinds of things. But people were trying to correct him, and they sent letters and everything, and he was so confused by the telephone calls that he got, and said, "No, it is not Maryland. It's..." So anyway, this picture that was on the bulletin board there in the practice field house said, "Still undefeated, Mayf Nutter wins another game here at the stadium." And that's how it became Mayf. The boys of that Bridgeport High School football team, they start calling me Mayf because of the picture. Of course, they were following sports, and so they knew about it. And then the girls heard the boys talk and called me Mayf, so they started calling me Mayf. And then the teacher said, "What's going on?" Pretty soon they were calling me Mayf, and that's the way it stuck.
Yeah.
So I started
your mom and dad always interested in music? Did you come from a musical family?
Oh, yeah. None of them could read music, but they were pretty musical. My mother's last name was Southern.
Southern,
what?
Okay. When did you start performing music?
Well, they tell me that my first, the story goes my first singing was at church, really, and I sang Jesus loves me, this I know, and I was 4 years old. But first time I did radio, I think it was maybe 6 years old, and let's see if anybody remembers Cherokee Sue and Little John on WPDX radio there at Clarksburg. Remember that?
They are legends here.
Yeah, well, they were to me too. And
did you start on a radio?
Would you repeat that, please?
I said, did you start on a radio program with them?
Well, I was just a guest. I was there in the studio for something I think was a kids program or something that was about to start, and they asked me if I'd like to sing a song because they knew that my mom and dad and I traveled all around West Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, doing things. Round and square dancing was the thing in those days. and we would play things that it could be. I remember we played we played in high school gymnasiums. Lumberport, I remember doing the Lumberport gymnasium. And I think there was another one up the road there. Is Wallace up the way there?
Wallace, yeah. Shenton?
Yeah, okay, yeah, we played Wallace in the gymnasium there. And I was, 9, 10, 11 years old. And so we did mostly country songs. But
Mayf, can I ask
there was
you,
a guy,
how did you get,
yeah?
Could I ask you how you got started at WBOY?
Beginning of football season there, and what was that? Anyway, I was 15 years old, not enough old enough to drive yet, and there was a thing on the WBOY radio that said that they were having a talent contest at Unitas High School in West Milford, and the winner of that talent contest was going to get to be on the brand new TV broadcasting company there in Clarksburg, WBOY TV. And my mom and dad said, why don't you go? Why don't we do that? So they drove the way up there to West Milford, and it was snowing at the time, and so you know how that is. It was a little slippery.
Oh.
And so we slowly got there. There was snow on the road all the way. And so I got there with my tenor ukulele and that I played with a homemade pick. You know, you normally don't use a pick when you play a ukulele. You know, it's usually your fingertips or something. But I liked it because my dad's favorite treat at Christmas time was the chocolate-covered cherries. And in the box, there was a plastic area that I cut out in the shape of a guitar pick, and it was so flexible I could use it as a pick on my ukulele. So I had a So when I was playing by myself, I had a little percussion sound going on as I sang with my ukulele. So anyway, I walked in there with my ukulele and met Peter Lyman, who worked for WBOY TV, and he was going to be the MC. He was, I forget his position, but it was right under the ownership of the station. And I came in, and there were two or three other people there lined up ahead of me, signing something to ask him. And when I got up there, he asked me my name, and he said, "How long have you been going to Unitas High School?" And I said, "Well, I go to Bridgeport High School." And he said, "Well, I'm sorry, Mayf, but we can't let you be judged because we need a winner from this high school area here." Now, later on, I discovered that was because few people had TV stations. I mean, TV TVs in their house, and he thought that they couldn't get the station without a TV, so he thought that this would help people want to buy it because a winner from their high school was going to be on there, and I don't know how many times they planned to have them on there. Anyway, he said, but Mayf, this so-and-so flu business was going on, and the snow, and he said there were a couple people didn't show up, and I could go ahead and sing, but they just couldn't judge me for the program, the winner. And so I said, okay, Mom and Dad drove me here in the snow. Why not go ahead? Dad and Mom said, yeah, go ahead and sing. So I did. I sang a song. He ended up asking me to sing 3 more times that evening. Yeah. And I don't remember what year that was, but I remember one of the songs I sang was Peggy Sue. If you knew, Peggy Sue.
Yeah, Buddy Holly, yeah.
Yeah, so that was one of the songs I remember. So that'll tell you the year, I guess, or the time anyway. So anyway, I wasn't eligible to win the contest, so they drove me back in the snow, and I started back to school, and then they announced at school that if you could get a job around Christmas time, they'd let you out of school for Christmas vacation. Isn't it interesting? They used to call it Christmas vacation. and they said they could let you out of school 2 weeks earlier if you had a job to go to. You could raise some money and buy a couple of gifts for your family or something. And so I decided to go over to the TV station and ask them for a job. And I came in and got to talk to Peter Lyman in his office, and he said, I told him I'm there to get a job. He said, well, Mayf, we're not hiring any singers. And I said, well, I noticed when I walked in, somebody ought to clean that window out there that's facing Pike Street. That thing's a mess. And I said, I'll bet somebody empties your trash bags. Don't they? Look at your trash can over there. I'll bet you somebody empties that. And so he knew I wanted to work. He said, do you know anything about film, Mayf? And I said, well, I am a member of the photography club at Bridgeport High, and I run the projector in the auditorium when we have movies and stuff. And he said, oh, what kind of film do you use there in that projector? And I said, 16 millimeter. He said, well, that's what we use here at the station. All the shows that aren't, our news things that are here broadcast from our studio are on film. How would you like to, get a job in the film department? I said, that'd be great. So he hired me in the film department to load up the projectors there in the TV studio. And that wasn't the studio, it was the control room. And then they used slides, photography slides in a projector over there for local commercials and things like that. So I also had to load that and unload and make sure that the right commercials were in the right projectors at the right times. And I had a list of the shows and the commercials that needed to go into them, and I'd splice in the films.
Up having your own show on WBOY. And what was that show, Mayf?
Okay, it was called Big Boy, WBOY, Big Boy Bandstand.
Oh.
Yeah, with your host, Mayf Nutter. I kind of patterned that after. What'd you say?
I said, were you like Dick Clark, that type of a program?
That's exactly what I was going to say. I kind of patterned it after the Dick Clark things. And I personally contacted a different school around the area. Every Saturday had a different school come in because we filmed the Mayf Nutter thing. Actually, we were live. We didn't film it. We were live on Saturday afternoons, and that way we had the sunshine outside. Sometimes we'd dance to the current popular records and that's that I selected to play. And we'd dance outdoors if the weather was good enough. If not, we did it inside the studio. We had a studio on Pike Street at that time. Okay, we go ahead and talk.
I was going to say, during that time, did you go around and perform at other places, like local clubs or anything like that?
Yeah, matter of fact, I was part of a local pop group, I guess you'd call it, and we played, some mostly the rock things and country, because that's what they danced to and stuff like that. I remember we were getting ready to play one of those places. Let's see, what was the name? And it was between Lumberport and Shinston, and it was a lot of local miners. I think there's miners there. Anyway, there were some workers around there, and they came to the place. I wish I could tell you the name of the place, but it was a beer joint. And
yeah, that's what
when
we call it.
got ready, when we were when we were setting up the equipment, I asked the owner, I would like to us to do, how long a set would you like, and when should we take a break, and so forth. How would you like that to run? He said, well, just start playing music, and when a fight starts, go outside and watch a fight, and when it's over, come on back in. And yeah, and you can start right away unless somebody wants to start a fight with you, of course. And so anyway, that's what we did, and I finally had to stop doing that because that was getting in the way of my playing football, basketball, and baseball at Bridgeport High.
Yeah, I've heard you were quite the athlete.
Well, I think I told you about the Babe Ruth League All-Star team that traveled around the country. I was a pitcher there, so I was a pitcher for Bridgeport High School, and the new coach didn't want me to just sit on the bench when I wasn't pitching because I was actually the best hitter on the team too. So he had me to play first base, and that way I didn't have to do a whole lot of energy, running and like an outfielder would or something like that. And I pitched and then played first base when I wasn't pitching.
Now, I want to jump ahead a little bit. I need to know, how did you get from Clarksburg, West Virginia to California? What brought you to California?
Oh, my goodness. That'll take 2 or 3 more broadcasts.
Okay.
No, I can tell you that. I could tell you this. A couple of days after I graduated from Bridgeport High School, let's see, what was it, 1957? Anyway, I got a phone call. It was from a guy that I hadn't met before, and his name was Les Biederman, and he was from Traverse City, Michigan. And he said, the first thing he said, hello, is this Mayf Nutter? And I said, yeah. He said, are you the young man that Peter Lyman told me could do everything at a TV station, put up the damn tower? And I said, well, they do let me do, lots of stuff there and all that. And he said, well, I own 7 TV stations up here. I'm in Traverse City, Michigan, and several towns all over the state. We're thinking, we got an idea, and I wanted to run it past you and see what you think. And I said, okay, what is it? He said, well, I'd like to run a wire from our station to all the other stations so they could get our network shows and our local things. And I said, oh, that's a wonderful idea. So that would be like 8 TV stations? He said, yeah. I said, well, I think that's a wonderful idea. He said, well, what's so damn wonderful about it? I just came back from New York City, and they laughed me, made me sit down and shut up when I tried to explain to them what I wanted to do. And I said, well, I'll tell you what's so wonderful about it. And I asked the population, the Traverse City station and a couple of the other stations and all that. And I said, well, I'll bet you, there you are in Michigan, and I bet you don't even ever have a brand new car commercial, do you? When all the cars are being made there in Michigan. He said, no, we don't. And we tried like crazy. And I said, also, the over in Battle Creek, that's where Kellogg's and all those people, make the breakfast cereal. Do you get those commercials? He said, no, same thing. They thought we didn't have enough. I said, well, here's what's going to happen. As soon as you get all those people together, do you have any kids shows? And he said, yeah. And he told me what a kids show was. I said, how about sports? Did anybody broadcast? Yeah, we got that and so forth. I said, okay, start put the kids show on there, and then when you multiply all those, add up rather all those stations multiplied by 7 there. The Chevrolet company is going to really like to be able to advertise on your station because he's going to be on all those other stations. And the same thing with Kellogg's, because, they were watching, what was the kids show that was on one of the network shows? I can't think now it's popular, but he said, yeah, once, anyway, so he said, what are you going to do for college? You going to go to college? And I said, well, I got some scholarships, athletic scholarships around West Virginia University, Notre Dame, a couple, and nobody has TV. I want to learn more about TV. He said, well, Mayf, if you'll come up here to Traverse City, you can work for my station, and we don't give athletic scholarships at Traverse City College, but once it goes in, North Michigan, Traverse City College. But I'll pay for your room up here and give you the job. So if you'll help me put this situation together, and therefore the very first cable TV system in America was made.
And you were there on the ground floor of it.
Yeah, I was there just saying, well, let's do this. What? Yeah. What? Have another kids show? Okay.
When you were starting out, did you start out to actually want to be in television and radio, or did you have in your idea in the back of your head, I'd like to record music? Starting out, what did you feel
actually,
like?
I didn't really know. I looked around at all the other jobs and said, gee, I don't want to do what my dad does, which he worked at Home Hardware there in Bridgeport. And I knew other people that worked other places. When we lived in Parkersburg, he worked for Sears and Roebuck, and I used to help him deliver the advertising stuff from neighborhoods, and everything. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be a mechanic and deal with crawling under cars all day. I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and this opportunity of TV came up because I went to do that talent contest and got to know Peter Lyman. Yeah. What'd you say, Annie?
Touring with the passed away. You got into music.
Oh yeah, we can jump there. Yeah, well, when I got to the TV station and saw what was happening there, I just immediately took a dive right into how do you put these films together? How do you do you're a film director? We didn't have any video at that time, but the engineers were talking about it and everything, and they said, yeah, how in the world are you going to edit that stuff? Even if it was, you can't edit the videotape. What do you? And so I explained, we have 3 cameras for our news and different stuff, and they could have recorded all 3 of them, and then decided to use camera 1 for a little while, and then jump over to the other camera and back and forth. I think they could edit that way. And he said, well, I don't know. That takes a lot of electronic stuff. So they didn't quite believe that was going to happen. But as it turned out, it really interested me. So when I got the call,
for a natural that.
Yeah, when I got the call about going up to Traverse City and learning more, working in TV, doing more stuff, because the guy said that I could produce some of the commercials that were going to run on all the other stations and everything. And that's kind of what has interested me in TV. And I ended up in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, being the audition for the weatherman there, because I would read the broadcast magazine that came out once a month or once a week, I forget. And anyway, I'd read it, and they'd say who was looking for broadcasting stuff, and they said they wanted a weatherman there. So on my vacation, I took off and went to Harrisburg, and I auditioned for that thing. And the owner of the TV station said he really liked it, and he get in contact with me, and I went back to Michigan, and he called me in a few days and he said, Mayf Gasoline Company that is going to sponsor the weather channel, weather broadcast. Thought you looked too young to be a weather forecaster, and so we couldn't get the job for you. And he said, but we're getting ready to have a sportscaster on our TV. You want to come in for that? I said, yeah. So anyway, I ended up at WHP Radio and TV in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, so capital of Pennsylvania. So I did the early morning. Yeah, I did the early morning wake up show on WHP Radio, and then I'd go home and change clothes and come back and to get on the elevator and go upstairs to do the 6:30, 7 o'clock sports thing on TV. And then I go back to my apartment and change clothes again, and I go out and play in this rock band from 9 till 2 in the morning. So that went, yeah. So that went on for quite a while, and then I became so hoarse using my voice so much. And another thing that they started doing was if they had a national commercial that was supposed to be read by one of the local announcers, usually I'd get the opportunity to do that. So I'd have to use my voice to record all those commercials that were on our station.
You got better training that way, Mayf, than I think you would have ever got in a college degree.
Absolutely. But then I told you what was happening to my voice. Then I went to the doctor, and they sent me to the hospital and said, "What? Yeah, this could be serious." And they looked, and what they came up with is, Mayf, you got to get another kind of job. You can't be using your voice all the time, because there's a possibility that you could actually lose your talking voice. And they told me all the scientific stuff that was going on with the overuse of my vocal cords. And I said, oh, well, what am I going to do? That's all I know how to do it. They said, well, the first thing you got to do is you got to keep complete silence for 26 weeks. Complete silence, not a word, not a whisper, 26 weeks. And I said, well, how am I going to? He said, I don't know how, but you got to do that. So I went back to TV, radio TV there at WHP, and told the owners what I had, do. And they said, well, when you get ready to talk again, come back. We're real sorry about that. And so anyway, I had a cousin, Lula Bell. That was Aunt Wanda's daughter. Lula Bell was married to a guy from, I think, Shinston, maybe. And he was down there working, where was it, in Florida, where they were throwing the rockets up in the air?
Okay.
Anyway, what was it?
Is it Cape Canaveral?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You win the new Chevrolet. Cape Canaveral. Anyway, they lived pretty close to there, and they said they had an extra bedroom, and I could come down there if I couldn't talk or anything. That would be all right. So I went down there, started staying with Lula Bell and her husband, and when the 26 weeks went by, I went back up to Harrisburg and went to the doctor, went to the hospital, they looked again. They said, okay, Mayf, you can talk again, but you got to find a job that you're not talking hour after hour, like the disc jockey thing and the TV hosts and stuff. You just can't do that. You're still in danger of completely losing your voice. So I said, okay, and so what's a guy going to do? And then I thought about the film directing stuff, and I didn't have to talk so much with that. And since I've been down in Florida, I thought, the other thing they said is you can't live in this section of the country. It gets too cold, and it would just be terrible for your voice. So I said, well, where am I going to go? He said, well, any place in California or any place in Florida. And I said, oh, my goodness. So the only place I knew somebody was Florida, so I decided to go down there and start looking. And I went down to the Miami TV station there, and I asked them if they had something in film or making their commercials or something like that. And they said, well, we're not hiring anybody, but a friend of ours over in Tampa is looking for somebody. Why don't you go over there and talk to give me the guy's name? Anyway, I drove over there. Long story short is I was hired immediately, and I was the youngest. I became the youngest TV director for NBC TV, because they bought that TV station down there in Tampa because they wanted to videotape and broadcast the springtime preseason baseball games. So anyway, they hired me, and they would send the information about the new commercials they wanted. They'd send the new cars down from Detroit on the truck, and I'd write the commercials and direct the filming of them, and of course it was videotaped. And then I'd send the finished product up to New York City, and they would start sending it, all over the country in the commercials.
And television to records to film actor, you've had quite the career.
Yeah, I did, and they were all, to me, low-level stuff, because when I was doing broadcasting stuff, primarily commercials there, and I was also directing news shows every once in a while. So, this is just trying not to wear out my voice. So I wasn't really thinking about. I really couldn't do any singing, but. Dick Clark was traveling around the country with current popular recording artists doing live shows, and he ended up in Tampa one time, and I went over and visited with him. And one of the things that helped was I could say I'm from WTCM here, TV in Traverse City, and I'd like to talk to Dick and so forth. So they let me in to talk to him. It wasn't like some young kid. I wasn't even 21 yet to come in there and ask for a recording deal or something. So, but in doing that, I got to talk to some of the artists, and they were very encouraging about. I asked them a lot of questions about it, and I actually went to a Christian nighttime tent service that was traveling around the country, and it got within driving distance of our TV station there. And I went to that thing. They prayed for me, and my voice strengthened. And I can thank God that from right then, I just talked to those recording people, and didn't really get in any inside contacts or anything there, but that was encouraging me that there might be something there.
That's amazing. You've had such an amazing career, Mayf. Blessed, really blessed.
Yeah, really. When people ask me, how are you, Mayf? Go ahead, ask me, how are you, Mayf?
How are you, Mayf?
I'm blessed and highly favored, and wishing the same on you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Well, I know I only have an hour with you. Gosh, I wish I could talk to you all day, but I wanted to ask, I'll jump a little bit around if you don't care. I want to know about the country music side of your career. You were very fortunate to hook up with Buck Owens and the Bakersfield.
Okay.
On.
Okay, I'll tell you how that happened. I had already moved to California. Gee, there was a whole story in there, too. I had recorded a song that a guy that had a recording contract, a black recording artist that just had his first hit record on a small label, and somebody I knew as a songwriter and said, can you write something for this guy? And I did. It was, R&B type of thing called Head Shrinker. I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't gamble. I ain't accumulating no debts that I can't handle. But there's a problem on my mind, and the answer I just can't find. You better get me to a head shrinker. Something wrong with my thinker. Need a different woman all the time.
Oh, that's good, May.
Everybody loved that song. The artist loved that song. His manager loved that song, but the guy couldn't say shrinker. Could not say the word shrinker. Can you imagine? Heartbreak, another one of them, right? So anyway, The manager said, "Well, why don't you?" Then I was doing a regular nightclub job in Atlanta, and the guy that owned that nightclub was also the guy that was the manager for the artist I told you about. Anyway, he asked me to come to Atlanta, and actually NBC sold that TV station there in Tampa, and so I was without a job, and I ended up through several different deals to Atlanta. And anyway, I was doing the show every night in my my show there at the nightclub. And this fellow who was worked now in Texas, he was from Texas, and he worked. Okay, tell me what the name of that place was in Texas that did the rockets going up in the air. He worked for them down in Houston. NASA. Was it NASA? No, that was Florida. Anyway, he worked down there, and he came in once a month or so to Atlanta, and when he did, he stayed in a hotel that was attached to the restaurant where I was playing, and I played the song for him, and I was playing it on my show. But when I played it the first time, he immediately came up to the stage and said, "Would you play that song again?" And I said, "Morning." He said, "Yeah." And he gave me a $20 bill. Well, that was pretty good back yonder. $20 tip, for one guy. And so he'd come in every time he came in, $20, do that song again. And one time he said, "Who recorded it? Whose record was it?" I said, "Well, it hasn't been recorded." "Well, how'd you learn it?" And I said, "Well, you wrote that song?" "Yeah." And he said, "Well, why don't you record it?" I said, "Well, it costs a lot of money to actually make a record and get it out there and everything." He said, "Here's another $20." He came in the following month, and he said, How much would it cost you to do a record?" I said, "Well, probably a couple $1,000. And he said, "Oh my goodness, yeah." And next time he came in, he said, "If I gave you the $2,000, what would I get?" And I said, "I'll give you a nickel out of every dime that comes from the sale of that record. Just do that." And the next time he came, he brought a check for $2,000. And,
oh my!
Yeah, and from there I ran to Michigan and recorded with the Otis Redding Band in the same studio that they used there. Ended up going. That's what took me to California, and then in California. I know we're running out of time, but I got to tell you this quick because you'll want to know this. That record got played by Wolfman Jack. And Wolfman Jack had a syndicated radio show all over the country, and he played novelty records and R&B and stuff like that. And it became very popular all over the country. And got a call from the owner of the Platters, the singing group, the Motown singing group, and he asked if I would come and be the opening act for a 6 weeks tour for the Platters. And I said, oh, yeah. So I started doing that, and the first show was in Dallas, and it was all black audiences. You know, the Platters were black, and Motown was really popular, and a lot of stations, you know, played pretty much Motown music. And so we went down there, and my records, there was the number one record played on that station, and the Platters, I think, was number 3 or something. We were both popular. And so the first, and we were playing black colleges and nightclubs that were primarily black and like that. So the first one was down there in Dallas, and the people at the nightclub actually got up from their dinner tables, and because it was rather formal nightclub, and trotted up to the stage and started screaming and yelling and yeah, clapping their hands like everybody does these days at rock and roll places, but they weren't doing that in my time. So anyway, they were really happy about that, and the Platters were happy about it and everything. And the next day, they had taken my record off that radio station because they found out I was white.
Really?
There's one. There's a story that you haven't heard. Yeah.
No, I've never.
Yeah. Well, one of the disc jockeys from the town there, and the radio station was playing all the Platters records and everything, was there, and he told the radio station, and they immediately took my record off the playlist. And then as we traveled all over Florida and Louisiana and all over the place, those stations had often taken my song off as well. But we went ahead and played the nightclubs and the college things and everything. And the tour hadn't happened to see how God works. It ended in Atlanta. So I took a quick cheap hotel room there, and I was very disturbed. I didn't know what to do with my life from then. I thought I had a direction to go, and then it was ruined by the fact that some people wouldn't play white guys station on the kind of record that I had written. And I had a lot of other records too. And I was actually praying again, thank you, Lord, in my room at night. Took a lonely, stayed in my room there, didn't talk to anybody, and I heard, get pictures taken there in Atlanta and go back to Hollywood and become an actor. Well, and so when I woke up, I thought about that, and then I remembered that when I was regularly playing a nightclub there in Atlanta, a guy who was on a TV series called The Virginian, his name was Randy Boone, and he had come there to there was a western town where tourists would come, and it looked like an old town from a movie, and they would hire acts there. Anyway, Randy Boone was brought to my show by the guy that owned that western deal, and Randy liked to play guitar and sing. Anyway, he really liked what I was doing, and he said, "Mayf, you ought to come to Hollywood." He said, "You're better than most of the guys our age are there, and I'm sure you could do something." Well, then I did go there, and I told you the story of what happened to me with not playing my records, and now I'm in this hotel room, and I get the thing to get some pictures taken to Hollywood. I did, and I called up Randy Boone, and he let me stay at his house there for a while. The first audition I got was Gunsmoke, and I knew the character I was going to play was Festus's cousin. You remember Gunsmoke on TV?
Absolutely. That was a mega hit back then.
Yeah. Well, you remember who?
Curtis, who played Festus, wasn't he a great character actor?
Oh, he was, and the accent was actually not his own. He was really a great actor and a great person, and I got to be personal friends with him, spend a lot of time at his house and everything. Anyway, audition. I had never gone to an audition for a TV show, to be an actor. I'd never done an acting job. So anyway, I showed up on the time, and Randy Boone loaned me a cowboy hat and a pair of boots and a pair of blue jeans, because the clothes I had were things you wear in a nightclub to perform. So anyway, I showed up in my cowboy hat and boots and blue jeans, walked in there and walked in the office, and I said, "Hey, does Hagen really live here?" And they said, no, he's an actor. He just comes in and plays the role. And I said, "Well, I sure do like him. He's got a very good that mule of his just terrific. Is Hank? Do you keep that mule here?" And I talked like that, no matter what they asked me, you know. And they said, I didn't know what it meant when they said read. Take it, you had to do a reading, but what they meant is they would give you 2 or 3 pages of stuff of what you to read, to audition for the role. And so they handed me I think it was 3 pages like that, and they said, "Can you read for us?" Meaning, did I have the time for it? You know, "Can you read for us?" I said, "Oh yeah, I can read. We all read pretty good here. Let me see here." So I read just like that all the things that was in the script at that time, and I read it, and they said, "Thank you," and I got the job. And that's the way that worked. That was my first audition and my first job.
Let's talk about 3 places that are important in your life and career. And I'll ask you Simpson Creek, Wheeling Jamboree, and the 2 Lick Run Skinny Dipping song. How does that sound to start?
That sounds good. And I've been encouraged to write a book, and I knew I'd never sit down and really do it. And anyway, we were going to call it Accidental Name Dropper. And I have being a name dropper is difficult to escape when you spend your days with folks like in no particular order. I just made a list here: Elvis, President Ronald Reagan, Nancy Reagan, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jeff Bridges, Sally Field, Faye Dunaway, Farrah Fawcett, Jackie Smith, Kate Jackson. Those are Charlie's Angels. I was the first guest star on that. Pat Boone, Alec Baldwin, New Christie Minstrels, Kim Carnes, Kenny Rogers. They were also members. Bill Haley and the Comets. Mickey Mantle and I were buddies. Muhammad Ali, Michael Landon, Lorne Green, and the list goes on. Joan Van Ark, Kevin Dobson, Slim Pickens, Brad Paisley. And there's a good West Virginia story right there about Brad, because he decided to become an entertainer from attending a Mayf Nutter show at WWVA there when he was a youngster. Johnny Cash, Merle Haggard, Buck Owens, Glenn Campbell, Gene Autry, Charlie Pride, Billy Graham, Willie Nelson, Chris Christopherson, Waylon Jennings, Del Shannon, almost finished, Dan Haggerty, Della Reese, James Best, John Schneider, Catherine Bach, Denver Pyle, Tom Wopat, all Dukes of Hazzard people, Debbie Reynolds, Rock Hudson, George C. Scott, Jack Palance, Wolfman Jack, May Axton, Hoyt Axton, Jack Blanchard and Misty Morgan, Randy Boone, and Big Mama Thornton and Brian Hyland, and more.
My goodness.
So those were some names, you know. I'd say, "Oh, I was over there talking to Pat Boone," and he said, "You know Pat Boone?"
Well, when do you think you'll have a book coming out? Are you serious about doing it?
Well, yeah, but I don't know. I'll need some. It's a work in progress, Lindsay says. But I think we're to the point where we really need some kind of a publisher association or knowledge that we're going to get one or something. Because
when that happens, let us know.
Okay. Well, we have all these notes around here, and Lindsay actually put together hear that? Those are all notes. Those are all half of the notes in a notebook.
let's talk about Simpson Creek. Let's start off with that.
All right.
Tell me the story about you growing up around Simpson Creek and how that song came to be.
Okay. You want me to start now?
Yes.
Okay. The song Simpson Creek Won't Never Run Clean Again started when the guy named Frank, what's his name? Oh, shoot. I'm all messed up here now. I'm looking too many names. I mentioned this the other day. The guy's name is the rock and roll guy that came and saw my show and said he wanted to. Frank Zappa. Yes, thank you. This is going to sound, I'm sure I've already ruined the show. So.
No.
Frank Zappa said, you're not like most songwriters who, usually write something about when they were growing up or, back home kind of stuff. And so, would you write something about West Virginia? So that's where the song Simpson Creek Won't Never Run Clean Again was inspired to be written. And then it actually didn't get a whole lot of airplay around the country because it was on a very small independent label who, in those days, you bought records at the record store, and they weren't getting any of those records for sale at the record store. So things are kind of going slow there. So back in January of 1971, all the calls had been coming up to the director of corporate public relations for the Consolidation Coal Company in Pittsburgh. And they were West Virginia people complaining, having heard my record on local West Virginia radio stations. They were calling up there and complaining because by this time Simpson Creek was running like orange pop and and red blood and smelling terribly. And so anyway, after that was happening, I was still in California and really, didn't know what was going on directly there. So it said, Mr. Hazlett Cochran, Director of Corporate Public Relations for the Consolidation Coal Company up in Pittsburgh, he and his assistant made a special trip to Wheeling, specifically to see the Mayf Nutter show, who was scheduled to do the WWVA Saturday shows there that they've had for, decades and decades, live concerts at the Capitol Theater there that are on the radio live. And during their visit, they asked to come backstage and talk to me, and the security guys said, well, wait, we'll walk you back there when they're through. So they brought him to my dressing room, Mr. Cochran and his assistant, and he informed me that that the song Simpson Creek had started a flood of protest, no pun intended, a flood of protest, which had forced the Consolidation Coal Company to step up their research program. I'd never heard of a research program. And during the intensive research, a microorganism was discovered that would literally eat up that mining waste in the streams. And he showed me a bunch of colored photos and said that they were testing it and so forth. And he said, so we're doing something about it. So, Mayf, will you please call off your people now? He actually said that as if I had started that whole thing, and I didn't even know it was happening.
Yeah, you didn't know you had people.
No, I didn't know they'd been calling up there or anything. And he showed up there. I came in from California, flew into Pittsburgh, and they drove me over to do the Wheeling Jamboree there. Anyway, Simpson Creek was made the pilot project for their test program. Within 3 months after the testing began, Simpson Creek was running clean again.
So your song, Simpson Creek, was like the first environmental song, wasn't it?
Oh, yes, it was. As a matter of fact, the Sierra Club named my record, Simpson Creek Won't Never Run Clean Again, as the very first environmental record ever recorded. So that was the historical thing for all the West Virginia people.
For the younger folks that don't understand how the mines polluted everything. Tell that story about when you were younger and you played ball over in Bridgeport, how that creek looked.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I was just Little League and Babe Ruth League age, from maybe 14, 11 years old, up in there. Anyway, there was a flat piece of land up the street from where we lived, and we would go down there and play baseball. And we had a special rule: if you could hit the ball into Simpson Creek, it was a clean stream, and if you hit it into Simpson Creek, it was a home run, and everybody was thrilled about it. Okay, well, as we continued to play there, all of a sudden we started to see all this pollution coming in, and the color of the water changing, and the smell of the water changing, and everything. And that was from the mines that had started strip mining up on the beginning of Simpson Creek up there. And anyway, it was so bad that we had to change the rules in our playing ball. And if somebody hit the ball into Simpson Creek, it wasn't a home run. It was an automatic out, and you had to go wade in there and get the ball yourself.
That's a bad penalty.
So
I don't think the younger folks understand when the mines were so active around here. They literally just came in. I always said they just came in and raped the land. They didn't care. They just took the coal and left what was ever left behind, and they didn't try to clean it up.
That's right. And they actually, I guess, didn't have a way to do that, as Mr. Cochran explained. But because of all the people from West Virginia, from all over the state, who had heard the song, I guess, from the Pittsburgh area, too, because that was close enough geographically for people to play Simpson Creek, even though the record label wasn't a major record label. Anyway, that's what happened, and they started to clean it up. And I was really surprised when I found out that Simpson Creek is where they made the pilot project for the test after Mr. Cochran had told me that they found that thing that would eat up the mining waste. And within 3 months after the testing began, Simpson Creek was actually running clean again.
Well, thank you, Mayf, for that, because that was because of you. That was the catalyst for that, and that was a great song. You had some great musicians on that too. Yeah, that was a good one. Some of the musicians were actually from a university. The horns and stuff were from. We had to go to Arizona and use this college band. How long did it take you to write that song, Mayf? Was that something that came pretty quickly?
Yeah, I wrote it in a few minutes actually, because I felt what was going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, it's if you look at the lyrics, it still sounds very conversational. Simpson Creek will never run clean again. Sulfur water runs red where the big fish used to swim. Now the fish are all gone, and the skinny dipping isn't going anymore. So anyway,
it got a lot of airplay here around in Clarksburg. I do remember that.
Yeah, well, I was really thrilled and understood that a lot had been done when they held a Mayf Nutter Day, which turned into a Mayf Nutter Week there in Clarksburg. And they had a parade, and I came in to do the parade, and I did a little show for them after the parade. But many of the businesses in Clarksburg and around that area had Mayf Nutter sales going on. During, they knew I was coming in for Mayf Nutter Day, and it became a Mayf Nutter Week sale. And I guess all the businesses did great because of that.
Well, we love you here, and I'll tell you another place that loved you was Wheeling, West Virginia. Talk to me about the Wheeling Jamboree.
Okay, well, before I was much of a musician and stuff, I grew up in a family made of my mother and dad, both of whom and both families had music people in them. And so I can remember I wasn't young enough to go to school yet, and my mother and I were visiting with our grandparents, Sam Southern, there in Jane Lou, West Virginia, right? And the main highway ran through their property. Mom woke me up real early in the morning. It was barely daylight, and she said, listen, that's your daddy on the radio. And he was playing with a group up in Wheeling at WWVA, and we could hear it there. And so that was, if I was 7 years old, it was probably 1946 or 7 maybe. And
you remember the group he was in? What group was he in?
Oh, my goodness. Oh, I can't take it out. I have it written down here someplace. But
That's fine. I'm just curious.
Yeah, it was a couple. A guy and a girl, and they hired Dad to be their guitar player, and he played mandolin as well. Every once in a while, he'd get to sing a song, so that's kind of the way that worked.
So Wheeling was a part of your life even as a child, wasn't it?
Oh, it was, yes. And then later on, when I had records that were being played there regularly and everything, that's when Simpson Creek Song came along, and that's when Mr. Cochran over there in Pittsburgh decided to come and see me, because otherwise I was in California, and he came there, and I'd been doing whenever I had a tour that went any place around the country that was close to WWVA in Wheeling, West Virginia, I would go and do their Saturday evening show that was on the radio.
Now, what was Jamboree in the Hills for people that don't know?
Oh, okay. Well, when I was living in the Hollywood Hills, I got a call from a guy named Bill Boyd, and he was the president of the California Country Music Association. But he was a buddy of mine, and so he called and said, "Mayf, I'm in trouble here, and I really need you to come and help me right away." And I thought, oh my goodness, you got a flat tire out there on the freeway, and how am I going to help him with that? And he said, I said, well, okay, where are you? And he said, I'm in Wheeling, West Virginia. I thought, now that's kind of a long way to go change a tire for somebody, And I said, well, what's wrong? He said, well, we're having a 4-day event here in, actually it's over in Ohio, but it's going to be filmed and on, oh shoot, I don't have the information in front of me here. But it was going to be filmed as a live show, and it had all these worldwide famous artists coming up, but nobody would follow Johnny Cash after he performed. He was so popular, had his own TV show at that time and all that, and none of the other artists, and there were lots of big names on there that wouldn't agree to come, because wouldn't agree to follow Johnny Cash, because come on, who's going to make their act as good as Johnny Cash, So anyway, Bill Boyd asked me if I would come in and follow Johnny Cash, because he knew I not only sang songs, I also was kind of entertaining when I did. And so I went in and to do the show, and actually I didn't get there. My plane didn't get there early enough, and I had to drive all the way from Pittsburgh to get over there into Ohio, about 15 miles or 20 miles west of Wheeling. And when I got there, Johnny Cash was on stage, and I was going to use the house band, and I really didn't, I had no opportunity to really do any rehearsal with them. So, anyway, Johnny Cash came on, and he finished, and they introduced me, and I came out and did my thing, and the people were just great. I mean, they cheered and laughed in the right places and clapped their hands and everything, and I thought, gee, this is really great, and it's going to be on this TV show and everything. And they had cameramen way up on ladders, and some of them were in the same place where the lighting things were way up there high, it was really set up as a big production deal. Oh, this is going to be nice. And anyway, when the show was over and they were cleaning up the stage and all that, I was still there, and I was looking out to where the crowd of about some 40,000 people had gathered, and I was just thanking the Lord. This is really something. What a great opportunity here. Thank you for giving me the chance and abilities and the opportunity to be here to do this live show. And all of a sudden, one of the cameramen passed in front of me with a bunch of wires in his hand and stuff. He said, "Oh, Mayf, hey, we really enjoyed your part of the show. I mean, it was really something. I'm sorry that we didn't film it." And I thought, what? I thought, you're kidding, aren't you? He said, no, they told us to turn the cameras off at the end of Johnny Cash and not record the next act. And
oh no, that's awful.
Yeah, it was, and it was after midnight, and I'm standing there on the stage looking out there to the empty place where all those people were, and saying, what am I doing wrong here, Lord? And then I heard somebody behind me, a female voice. It must have been, 20 feet or more behind me. And he said, Mayf, hey, Mayf. Yeah, and I turned around and I looked, and it was Virginia Alderman, who owned the property where the jamboree in the hills was being done there. And her family had spent the money to build this place that looked like a big barn. And when the doors opened, it was a stage to perform on. But it looked like a big barn. And there were actually stalls for horses and things like that. And some of the stalls were used in such a way that they could close a door and you could use it as a dressing room. Anyway, she was back there. Yeah, and it was her family. And so she said, oh, I knew that they were calling you to do the follow Johnny Cash. We heard all the problems they had, and you came in and solved it. You did a great job. And she said, I said, yeah, and they promised that one of the things, all I wanted to do wasn't make a lot of money, but just I wanted to be part of the show. And she said, they didn't film you? And I said, no, the cameraman just told me. She says, well, come here, go with me. And I followed her to a trailer that was parked back there that had the equipment in it that where they could control all the sound and the cameras out there. It was being directed, as you will, in that big trailer. And she went back there and took me with her, and she said, what happened? You didn't record Mayf Nutter? And they said, no, they told us not to. And I said, and she said, who told you not to? And she named somebody that I don't even want to report now. But she said, well, he was promised that you were going to film him, and that's why he came in here and followed Johnny Cash. None of those other people would do it. And the guy said, well, take a look over here. He said, you see that over there, all that tape? See that in that big reel over there? Do you have any idea how much it costs to run that? And Miss Alderman said, well, I got an idea. Why don't you just use that same film that you didn't use and use it tomorrow and let Mayf perform so you can actually film him? And they said, no, we can't do it. Anyway, they argued for a while and finally said, okay, if you can get a band to back you, we'll do that. Because the band that we used, for example, the piano player and so forth, they left town, and we don't know what we're going to do. We don't know how. But if you can find a band, we will find a spot for him tomorrow. And so Miss Alderman said, now you promise this time, you're actually going to film him if he stays over another day and does another show? And he said, yeah. And I told him that I knew several people, Donna Fargo and some people like that, Charlie Rich and Tom T. Hall. And I said, one of those people would be glad to give me, a few minutes to do a show. And they said, well, you figure that out, and then we'll do it. We'll record you. So the next day, and so she said, okay, Mayf, come on, follow me. And we walked up to their house, which was on the property there, probably a couple hundred yards from where the stage was. And we walked out, and on her front porch were a bunch of people, young people and so forth. And it turned out that they were part of the band that her son, Leslie Alderman, played in. And we walked up there, and they saw me, and the front porch was opposite of where the barn was and everything. So the house was between us and where the barn was. So we didn't see the people until we walked to the other side of the house. And when we walked around, they could see us. They said, oh, look, Mayf's here, Mayf Nutter. Hey, Mayf Nutter is here. Hey, oh, we loved your show. And the mother said, yeah, it's a shame they didn't film him. They promised you. And the boy said, what? We didn't film that. They didn't. And she said, no. And I said, they say they're going to film me tomorrow. How'd you guys like to be my backup band? And they looked at each other and said, oh, we get the back? Yes, we'll do it. We'll do it. And we actually rehearsed in her boy, Leslie Alderman's bedroom. And we didn't have a piano to play or anything. But anyway, we ran through some songs. I helped them learn the chords to a bunch of stuff. And we went and actually played the song, and they actually filmed me that day. And I'm looking now here at a West Virginia publication called the West Virginia Hillbilly, and it was published on August 15th, 1977. That was the year of the first show, and it says, Clarksburg boy Mayf Nutter steals show from Cash, Haggard, Wynette, Fargo, Fender, Tom P. Hall, Rich, Gilly, Mandrell, Ernest Tubb, et al.
Wow.
Jamboree
You didn't get a better review than that, Mayf.
that was the headline. It was like a 2-page story with the pictures of each person that they mentioned there. Merle Haggard and Barbara Mandrell and so forth. And so that's the way it all started. And then a couple of years later, well, actually in the following year, when now I got scheduled to be there, and I came to do the show, and they had the special gate that would and fence so that the fans wouldn't come back and disturb people who were setting up instruments and getting ready to play and stuff like that. And so this lady came from backstage, walked up to me, and she was one of the fans. And she said, "Hi, I'm one of the fans here, and we were here before, and glad to hear that you're back on here again." And I thought maybe her trailer or something was parked back there behind the barn, and it turns out that wasn't true. That she had sneaked in and said, "You got to write a song. You got to write a song about this." I said, "Well, what do you mean?" She said, about this. Look at all these people. These people out here, they're making dates with each other and having family reunions and all that. And they just love what you do. You ought to write a song about this. And I said, well, I don't know how I would do that. And she said, please, you got to do it. You're a songwriter and so forth. Anyway, after the show was over that night, one of our people in that band, piano player, as a matter of fact, he and his family had a cabin out on, I think it was called Big Wheeling Creek, and we all went out there for kind of a celebration at the end of the show at the cabin and walked out to the creek there. And I was looking up in the sky and thanking God for all that and everything. And the other guys went back up to have the food and drinks. And I just stood there on a rock for a while. And all of a sudden, I heard this song in my head. And I didn't say, okay, I'm going to write a song now. I actually heard this song coming. And it said, it was born in the summer of 77 in July, just out of Wheeling, West Virginia, in the Ohio countryside. And when the sun rose on that morning, it was so peaceful, just like before. But when the brush run, barn doors open, heaven knows, it wasn't quiet anymore. 'Cause there were thousands of people screaming, wearing smiles and clapping hands. And this was only just the beginning, what seemed like 100 country bands. It's 4 short days of fun and music, and it was showed on the radio. If you're not sure of getting to heaven, then there's a place you gotta go. Jamboree in the hills. And I heard that whole song. I played it over and over to myself in my mind. And I went up to the cabin and I said, anybody got a guitar up here? I want to try something. And they found an old guitar under a bed up there, and it didn't sound very good. It only had 4 strings on it. Anyway, I sang the song to him, and Les was there, Les Alderman, the son I told you about. He played bass in the band and still plays sometimes at the Wheeling Jamboree and there at the Saturday shows. Anyway, he said, you got to sing this song for my mom. You got to. So they held up the cell phone, and I sang it for the mom. And she said, oh, that's great. You got to make a record out of that. So that's kind of how the theme song, they started playing that song, and I didn't write it as the theme song. I just wrote it as one of those experiences that sometimes a songwriter will have, and write about the big fish he caught or something like that.
Well, it came from the heart. It's how you felt about it. Summed it up so perfectly.
That's right. I was just pouring out my feelings.
And that was the theme song every year that it went on since that, wasn't it? That's right, yeah. Every time. That must have been an experience, Mayf, to be live with those thousands of your fans. What an experience. Yeah. And then they changed the location here. I forget how many years it went on, but I think it was 17 years or something like that it went on. And they changed the location. But it wasn't too far from the original location. And there they were having like 75, 80,000 people actually there live. That's amazing. That was lots of fun. Kind of like the Woodstock of country, huh? Yeah, a lot of people called it that. You got it right. A lot of them said, okay, now better than Wood. I want to ask you about another place that's near and dear to your heart, Two Lick Run. Tell me Two Lick Run and the skinny dipping song. Okay. Well, that was another one of those songs, to do about something that where we grew up. So everybody in the song are really relatives of mine. But to tell the truth, we didn't ever go skinny dipping. It wasn't something that seemed like it was the nice thing to do. We didn't do that. But so the people in there were in the song were people who were actually cousins of mine. The song says, Robert Lee and Scotty boys come along quick. Delma Lee and Lulabelle are swimming in the creek. Well, those were boys and girls, my cousins, that actually lived on Two Lick Run Road. Now, where is Two Lick Run at?
That is just toward Clarksburg, a few miles from Jane Lou, West Virginia.
Okay.
Between Jane Lou and Good Hope, as a matter of fact. You know those big towns.
Oh yeah, I know them.
Yeah.
I come from that.
Yeah, and the river was the West Fork, I believe.
Yeah, I think that is the West Fork. You mentioned your dad in the song too, didn't you?
Yeah, my dad's in the song too. Yeah.
Did they call him Peanut?
Yeah, he was 5'2", and they called him Peanut. Yeah.
And if I tell you, the album cover to that is quite provocative. How did that come about?
Well, I had some people hear the song and say, "What are you going to do for an album cover?" And I said, "Go skinny dipping." They said, "Yeah, you got to do skinny dipping." And I said, "I don't know." And it kept coming up. Once I mentioned it, some other people said, "Yeah, you got to do that. You got to skinny dipping picture." And I said, "I don't know. How would you?" "Okay, I think I can figure out how to do, but we got to have a woman or a girl in it too. I don't know any girls that would be nude for a picture taken." And we figured out that it'd probably be the back of a girl looking at me who is skinny dipping with the water up high enough to just show my belly button and nothing lower. And we actually filmed it in the Kern River behind Merle Haggard's house in Bakersfield there. Yeah, and one of Buck Owens' sons had a wife who had a modeling business there for anything they need models for, advertising and stuff. And I said, "Would you ask her if there's a gal that would like to do that, do that picture?" And so he let me talk to his wife, and I told him what we wanted to do. And she said, "Well, I don't know exactly who would volunteer to do that, but I know somebody that would love to go skinny dipping with you." And I said, "Oh, really?" And that was the girl who came out. And
well, that's
a
great album cover.
Yeah. And an actor buddy of mine came up from Hollywood, and we all got into the river out there behind Merle Haggard's house, and that's where the picture was taken.
Now, the song Skinny Dippin', I think I've heard an interview you did, something about that song led to a television show?
Yeah,
Am I right?
It did. Yeah, it did. Let's see, there's a guy named Guy Waldron, and he came up with the idea to do this TV show, that he wanted it to be a series, and he had pitched it to ABC, CBS, NBC 3 times a year for 3 years. And they each said, "No, not quite what we're looking for." And he decided, and he was a Mayf Nutter fan from music, and he actually owned a Skinny Dippin' album, and but he didn't know me. But he had a mutual friend who also knew me, who happened to be Lindsay's acting coach, my wife's acting coach at the time. And so the coach called me and said, "This buddy of mine, Guy Waldron, is doing this TV series, and he wondered if he could use your album and the song." And he said he's going to pitch it one more time to the network and see if he can sell the series for TV. And I said, "Yeah, let it go ahead. Why not?" I didn't know if it was going to be a mystery or a cop show or what it was going to be, but I figured it would help him. I said, yeah, go ahead and do it. And later on, Guy Waldron told me what happened during his trying to pitch the show using the Don't Skinny Dippin' album and the song. In those days, you never find an office that had a record player in it. So he couldn't ask him to play the Skinny Dippin' song in their office. He recorded it onto a cassette tape and took his little cassette player into the office of the head of the network there, and he said he held up the album on the desk, and he stood behind the picture and held it up on the desk and hit the button and played the Skinny Dippin' song. And when the Skinny Dippin' song was over, he said all the executives looked at each other and nobody said yes, no, that's terrific or stupid or anything. They looked at each other, and they looked at him. He said they didn't say a word. And he said, I started to ask them, and they opened up a drawer and pulled out a contract, and the Dukes of Hazzard was born.
Oh, okay. What
Yeah.
Well,
and when I heard about it, I thought I really heard about what this show is all about. And they had, two boys, country boys, who were the stars of it and everything. I wanted to get an audition for that. But they were filming the pilot back in Georgia. So I never did get a chance to audition for that. But later on, way out on the 9th episode, they asked me to come and do a guest star role. And the story was that the president's limousine was passing through Hazard County on its way down to Florida to drive the president around on what he needed to do down there. And it stopped in Hazard County, and I stole the president's limousine and took it into Boss Hogg's chop shop. and we had a big fight with me and the boys and everything. Anyway, that's how I got to be on the Dukes of Hazzard show, number 9. It was the 9th episode, but that was the very first episode of Dukes of Hazzard that made the number 1 shot in the national viewer ratings. And the show is still on TV today. Yeah, still on today with reruns year after year.
Now, I'm doing you a disservice because I only have 10 minutes, but I want to talk a little bit about your acting career, if you can fit me in for 10 minutes.
Go for it.
You were on the Waltons. You had a recurring role as Bobby Bigelow. What was your experience of working on the Waltons?
Well, it was very good. I actually turned it down several times because I was starring on a TV series with Jimmy Stewart, James Stewart. It was called Hawkins.
I asked about that too.
Oh, you really? Well, it was called Hawkins on Murder, and I was his nephew, who was actually his private detective, and I'd help him find out who were the bad guys that needed to be put on trial. And those episodes were actually the beginning of Movies of the Week on television. And it was a combination of MGM and CBS, I believe it was. And so we were on CBS when they were shown on TV. But when the movies were shown, they showed them all over the world. And I got a postcard one day from Lebanon, and it said, I took all of our people to see your movie, and we all thought that you stole the movie from Jimmy Stewart. And,
wow.
I thought, gee, well, that's nice. And it was signed Jacqueline Onassis.
Oh, my goodness.
President John Kennedy's wife.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
What was Jimmy Stewart like to work with, Mayf? Was he good to work with?
Oh, he was wonderful. He immediately started treating me like his nephew. And we got along good. We visited each other's houses, and he said, you know what the definition of the best musician in the world is? And I said, no, I don't know. What would that be? He said, well, that's somebody who can play accordion but won't do it. It turns out he played accordion.
Yes,
Nobody
he did.
Did you know that?
Yes,
Jimmy
I
Stewart?
did. I think I've seen him do that before. I'm a big fan of Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah. Well, we used to get together at his house and then over to my house. I lived in the Hollywood Hills on the Studio City side of the hills, and we do songs together and everything. It was a wonderful thing, and it really did feel like family. And it was a heartbreak when he went on to be with Jesus.
Now, you played some pretty heavy character roles. Like you were in the pilot of Charlie's Angels, weren't you?
What was it now?
I said
Charlie
you did
Dan?
some heavy character roles, and I think, were you not in the pilot of Charlie's Angels? Like, weren't you the first bad guy?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was. Actually, it was pretty interesting because it was called, what was it called? Anyway, it was about one of the girls was riding a car in a race that took place inside a circular, what do you call those things? Racetracks. And anyway, so I was in that, and somebody was using one of those cars to put money in and drive them across the southern border into Mexico and use that money to buy drugs and bring them back in. And I was one of the guys that drove the car across the border for them. You never saw me drive it across the border, but that was part of it. But anyway, one of the girls became friendly with me on the show, and she set it up for me to get arrested. But when the first day I came to the show, I'd never met any of the girls, and didn't know what they looked like or anything. But I was in my dressing room trailer out there at the racetrack, and there was a knock on my door there, and I thought, oh, am I late or something? Was it the wardrobe guy or what? And I opened it up, and there was a lady standing there with her hair up in curlers and everything, and it looked like a house robe on, and she was actually barefooted, and she said, my husband told me to tell you hi, and I need somebody's name.
Lee Majors.
Yeah, and she said, my husband told me to tell you hi, and I said, oh, okay, who's your husband? And she said, Lee. I said, Lee? She said, yeah, Lee Majors. So I guess you know who that was.
Farrah Fawcett.
That was Farrah Fawcett. I met her with her looking from a trailer down to where she was standing on the ground in her curlers, and and that's how Farrah Fawcett and I met. And Jacqueline Kennedy, of course, who was Jacqueline Smith and
Kate Jackson.
Kate Jackson. Yeah, it was Jacqueline Smith, and Farrah Fawcett, I guess, was one of them too.
Yeah, you've had many wonderful roles. I think playing the bad guys might be the juiciest ones, though, right?
Yeah, but that one we actually weren't shown doing anything that was bad guy, beating up on people or anything like that. But we did break into a safe to steal the money that was going to go down to Mexico, and showed that thing how we used the right tools to open a safe and all that kind of stuff.
Well,
and
it's quite the journey, hasn't it, Mayf?
Yes, it has been really. And I think I read you a list of some of the people there because we were thinking about doing a book. And did you want to hear some of those names? Oh,
I got them. We started recording when we first started talking to you.
Oh, you did? Okay. Well, there was another page. There was another page long of people that I didn't get to.
Oh, okay. You have more? Yes, please.
Yeah. Let's see. I think I mentioned that when I was the leader of the New Christy Minstrels, Kim Carnes and Kenny Rogers were also members of the New Christy Minstrels, and Mickey Mantle was somebody that I had a lot of fun with. He and I played a lot of celebrity golf tournaments together, and Muhammad Ali, Michael Landon, Lauren Green, That was some bonanza people there. And James Arness, of course, was Gunsmokes. And then there was Stacy Keach and Lindsey Bloom. That was my wife. And Stacy Keach had that TV series there. And see who else. Joan Van Ark, Kevin Dobson, Slim Pickens, Brad Paisley. Okay, I have a Brad Paisley, West Virginia story for you.
Oh, yeah.
Brad was maybe first or second grader. I forget exactly how old he was, but he came to see a Mayf Nutter show back at the Wheeling Jamboree, one of the Saturday night shows there. And he and his mom were out in the audience, and people were clapping and laughing and having a good time. And I heard about this much later when I was doing Grand Ole Opry one time. I did not meet Brad when he came to see my show, but it was, some years later, I was doing the Grand Ole Opry, and this young man had just finished doing his last record, which I guess hit the radio stations and everything pretty strongly for him. And his name was Brad Paisley. I hadn't met him, but when he heard that I was there, he asked if he could come back to my dressing room and meet me after he had performed. And I had mentioned earlier that I saw that young man. I thought he was very talented, but I'd never met him. Anyway, he came back to my dressing room, and he said, "Can I tell you a quick story?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "My mom and I went to see your show up there at the Wheeling Jamboree, and everybody's having so much fun and everything, and we were too." And I turned to my mom and said, "Mom, is that a real job that he's doing? Is that a real job?" And she said, "Yeah, people get paid for that. They're, making." He said, "That's what I want to be. That's what I want to be." And Brad was telling me this story backstage at the Grand Ole Opry, and said, so when I got back home, Brad said, I started taking guitar lessons, and the rest is kind of history. But that's how Brad Paisley decided to get into the music business, and I'm glad he did, because
that's a beautiful story. And that's how many people's lives touched like that, Mayf.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say that they learned one of my songs and decided to start trying to be an entertainer, but that's the first one that I heard of that really hit the stardom. Brad Paisley from West Virginia.
I tell you, growing up, I was always such a big fan of you, and every time I'd see you on the Waltons, I would think, he came from where I'm from, and that's pretty neat. I was always so in awe of that.
Right. So sorry to interrupt you, but I interrupted you before to tell you that I kept turning down the opportunity to do that show because I was doing the Hawkins show with Jimmy Stewart, and so when that series ended, we got more calls. Is Mayf available now? Because I kept saying I wasn't available. And they said, so somebody said, yeah. So I decided to go in and talk to them. And so when I talked to them, they told me that they wanted me to play this singing personality on the radio. And in those days, of course, they didn't have records back in the 30s to play on the radio. So it was a live performance. And I said, I'll do it under... I got about three different things that I'll have to insist on. And they said, okay, what are those three things? I said, well, number one is I get to name my own musicians to play that kind of music. And number two is I got to choose the songs because I saw the pilot show and you were doing stuff like Skip to My Lou, My Darling, and stuff like that weren't actually... a big hit record type stuff of the day. And they said, that'd be fine. Okay. And so I said, we get to, and the third thing is that I actually get to record the music where I'm singing it and my guys are playing the music. So and not just lip syncing or something. And they said, okay, all right. So we do live stuff. You choose the songs and your musicians. But one thing, Mayf, it's kind of might be a disappointment to you, I said, what's that? He said, well, we can only afford 3 musicians. I said, okay, I'll make it work.
Uh-huh.
So anyway.
And great job on that.
Yeah, well, I ended up having my own radio show when, back in the day, I did my first radio show there on WPDX with Cherokee Sue and Little John.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Big powerhouse thing. Cherokee.
Right. So that was a fun thing there, and we still do Walton get-togethers, although the show isn't working anymore. But we did I think it was the 50th year celebration here a while back down in Texas, and
they
flew down there.
I see them on Facebook where they're doing the reunions, which is great because that was a great show. It's fun.
Yeah, and I enjoy meeting the other people that were actors with me, because when I played Bobby Bigelow in the Haystack Gang, I wasn't just on the radio. I became friends with the family, and got to interact with some of the stuff that they were doing.
Well, Mayf, I'm looking at the clock and I went past your time, so I have really enjoyed talking with you, and thank you so much for doing this interview.
Okay, these other 3 pages are the list of things that were on the international movie list. I know you don't have time now, but
well, what we'll do, Mayf, we do like a little write-up, with each podcast, so we can include that on there.
Oh,
so
you want me to go down the list?
If you want to, that's fine.
Well, I can do it because the list is right here in front of me. A lot of these you will not. A lot of these you probably won't know what in the world's going on. But
well, if you have time to do it, go right ahead.
Okay, here we go. In 2021, I did Wizard Dream, and I did a TV movie with Giles Vanderhoot. I did the movie The Treasure of Painted Forest in 2006. I played Farmer Frank, and there was a movie called Hollywood is a Dog's Life, and it was had dogs in it and about Hollywood, and I played a character named Coop. And then there was Grizzly Adams and the Legend of Dark Mountain, which I was one of the stars, and one was called there's a series called What a Cartoon, and I played in the Podunk Possum cartoon, and I was Podunk Possum's hilarious best friend who led him into lots of trouble. Okay, but he always got out alive. Okay, and I did the movie Night of the Running Man as a mugger. And I was in Pink Lightning, 1981, 1988, Days of Our Lives, and I did 3 different characters in that, what do you call it,
soap opera?
Day soap opera, yeah, and I played 3 completely different characters in it. And then there was Houston Nights, that's another TV series, and I was Reverend Dale Somerville, and at that time, I had several people say, it's too bad your name is Mayf Nutter, because that sounds like a guy that just does funny songs. As an actor, that might be a tough name. You might want to change it to something. And there were several named people there that suggested that I come up with a name, and I came up with the name, where is it now? Mayf Nutter Adamson. I named Adamson, put Adamson at the end rather than Nutter. That was 1987 Houston Nights, the first one. Anyway, I only used that a couple of times. And then I did Throb, which is a TV series. I played a cowboy on that back in 1987. Hunter's Blood was a feature film, 2025. And now there are plans to make that available as a video disc. That was 1986. And Enchanted Musical Playhouse was a TV series where I played a magician. And then there was Glitter TV series I did an episode of that in 1985. Airwolf TV series, 1985. Played Nick DeSoto. And then I was on Street Hawk and Knots Landing. I got here. I was the romantic lead with Valley and Ewing. 1984 all the way through 1985, 7 or 9 episodes of that. And then Murder, She Wrote, The Stone Boy. Switch the page here. And then there was Whiz Kids was a TV series. And I did that in 1985. And then Lone Star Bar and Grill, that's the one that they made a series out of down in Texas, and I played a country singer who had a bad accident with a truck hitting me, and I was in a wheelchair the whole time. I played the owner of Lone Star Bar and Grill, and won TV Actor of the Year from that in 1983. And then I played in the TV series Gun Shy, also 1983. And The Fall Guy, now we're back to, what's her name's husband?
You played with Lee Majors in that.
Yeah, Lee Majors. That was it. Lee Majors' Fall Guy. And I was a guest star on that twice, starting in 1982. And then Falcon Crest, the 5:20 an hour dream. That was back in 1980. And the Dukes of Hazzard, I did I mentioned that. First one that made the rating #1, first time ever. That was 1979. And then Magical World of Disney, which was the nighttime show that showed Disney movies. Sometimes they weren't cartoons. They were real animals, like a bear would become friends with a raccoon or something like that. And I was the narrator.
I remember you on that.
What did you say?
I said, I remember you on that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I did many episodes every year on that from 1971 until the series ended in 1978. And then there was another Tale of Two Critters, which turned into a feature film that I narrated in 1977 for Disney. And then the Charlie's Angels things that we talked about was I was a guest star on the first episode ever produced, that Charlie's Angels thing. That's one of the reasons I didn't know who all those actresses were. And I played Eddie Durko, and it was back in 1976. And then there was a movie that I did called Stay Hungry, and it also starred Jeff Bridges, and it was filmed in North Carolina. And a quick story there, Jeff and I showed up together on the same plane to start doing the movie there. And we wanted to go to get some food because all we'd had was the airport stuff traveling over there. And so we went to this restaurant and walked in there, and the guy at the door said, "Sorry," and he pointed to Jeff and he said, "It's a rule we can't let people in who don't have a collar on their shirt or something." And I had a collar on my shirt, and so I said, "I can come in, but he can't." And he said, "Yeah, I'm sorry about that." And I said, "Let me understand now. All he needs is a collar. Is that right?" He said, "That's right, that's right." I said, "Okay, we'll be right back." We went outside, and I tore one of the collars off my shirt and stuck it down in the front of Jeff Bridges' T-shirt, and we walked in, and the guy said, I said, "One collar." And he said, "Okay, follow me. Table for two." So that was one of the things Jeff Bridges and I got to do together. And and then Stay Hungry also starred Jeff Bridges, I mentioned, and it was the first feature film and first speaking role for an actor named, well, he wasn't an actor, he was just a big, strong guy named Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Is that right?
It was his first movie, 1976, and it was called Stay Hungry, and he was a muscle grower getting ready to do some big contest, and he was preparing for it there in this town where Jeff Bridges and several other guys and I were trying to buy up this whole area in the city in order to start a shopping center, which was a new thing at that time. Anyway, Arnold Schwarzenegger and I became really good friends there, and I actually taught him a lot of English, pronunciation and things, and I taught him how to water ski. He wanted to do that. So on the weekends, we went out and did that. That was good. And then we mentioned the Waltons, Bobby Bigelow and the Haystock Gang. That was 1974 to 78 or something like that. And then there was How the West Was Won, and I was a guest on that one. I mentioned the Hawkins TV series that was a weekly TV show, but it was also in theaters worldwide. And then there was Lefty the Ding-a-Ling Lynx, which is another TV movie that I narrated, and it became a feature film. And then I did the High Shape Chaparral, which was kind of an interesting story because before that, in 1970, I was in Nashville doing hee-haw. I wasn't personally doing hee-haw, but Ganella Hutton was the sexy, beautiful nurse on there, and she wanted to sing on the show, but they wouldn't let her because her voice was like a Broadway female singing voice, and so I actually gave her the lessons back in our houses in Los Angeles, and she finally got to sing on the show. Where was I now? Okay, while I was back there helping her, got a call from my agent, and he said, there's this show back here, it sounds like it was just made for you. The guy has to sing and play the guitar, and it's an action series for Bonanza. It's an episode of Bonanza, 1970, and he said, do you want to fly back here and do an interview? And I said, yeah, I'll do that. And so I was doing the show, and it was about the young men who, after the Civil War, were trying to find a way to settle into a new life again. And I was one of those guys, and it was a pretty good thing. Okay, and then everything started with, as you mentioned, Gunsmoke, where I played Heathcliff's Hagen. My character was Heathcliff Hagen, and I played, what was his name, the country guy's cousin, youngest cousin on there.
Festus' cousin?
Huh?
Was it Festus' cousin?
Yeah, that was it, Festus. I couldn't think of his name right now because what's written down here was my character's name. Yeah, I played Festus' cousin down there, and I think I told you the story of the racial discrimination where they wouldn't play my R&B records on certain radio stations because they found out I was white.
Yeah, you told me. Yeah.
Okay, well, when I came back to Hollywood and started to be an actor, I brought the pictures that felt like the Lord had told me to get taken back there, and then I went to several agencies, and they said, okay, what's the film that you've got? And I wanted to be a new actor with their agency. They said, well, show us your latest film. And I said, well, I don't have any film. That's right. Well, I'm sorry if you don't have film. And that's the way it went that way forever and ever. On the phone, I called a whole list. I got the Screen Actors Guild list of agents and called every one of them. And they each said, okay, come and show us your film or send your film. And I didn't have any. So I decided I was going to walk in and do it. So I started at the corner of Hollywood and Vine, heading west, and I walked into every place that looked like anything that had to do with movies and stuff, and ended up way down on the west side there. And it was one of those offices that are upstairs but had the porch that you walk up to. And I saw there was some agency there, and so I knocked on the door, and nobody answered, but the door was halfway open, so I walked in. There were several desks around, but nobody was there, and I said, hello. The guy walked out and said, oh, hi there, I know you. And I said, you do? Where'd you meet me? I said, well, I didn't really get to meet you, but I was working for another agency before I started this one, which is my own agency. And I heard you ask to, get representation, and they told me that they couldn't do it because you didn't have any film. He said, well, I'm just getting my agency started, and would you like to join me? So he became my agent. He's the one that got me the opportunity to audition for Gunsmoke. And did I tell you the story about auditioning for Gunsmoke?
No.
Okay. Well, I found out that it was, what was his name again?
Was it Festus, played by Ken Curtis?
Festus, right, Ken Curtis. Yeah. Well, Ken and I became such friends that his wife called and asked me to actually come to his funeral and sing a song because he was musical too. Okay, so what was it? Gunsmoke. Okay, so I walked in there to do the audition for Festus's cousin, so I knew that he was a Southern talking boy and all that, and Randy Boone, who had seen me performing at nightclubs in Atlanta and tried to convince me to come and be a Hollywood actor at that time, years ago, before that. And he loaned me a cowboy hat and some blue jeans because all I had was the kind of clothes that I'd wear on stage to perform music. So in my blue jeans, or his blue jeans and boots and cowboy hat, I walked in there for my Gunsmoke audition, and I just walked in there talking like this and everything. I said, what's his name again? The Hagen boy, does he really live here? And they said, no, he's just an actor. I said, well, he sure is a good one because he sounds just like us Hagen boys. And does that jackass he owns, is they here? I love horses and things like that. And they said, no, that's just a donkey that we use when we need it for him. And he said, are you ready to read for us? Well, I didn't know that read for us meant let us give you 3 pages or so of a script and have you read the part that you're up for. I didn't know what that meant. Reading. They said, spend a little bit of time here, but can you read for us? And I said, oh yeah, I can read. I can read. We can all read real good. And they handed me the script, and I started reading it without any rehearsal or reading it over or anything. I just started reading the thing like this, and I talked like that all the way through it. And next thing I knew, I was Festus's cousin on Gunsmoke, and that was my very first film acting role of any kind, and that started it all.
From the West Virginia hills to the Hollywood hills, huh?
That's right, the Hollywood Hills. Yeah, and by the way, when I finished the Bonanza episode, when I had to fly in there and audition for that thing, and had to do it quickly because I had my airplane was scheduled to take me back to Nashville as soon as I saw the guy. I went in for the audition, and I met the director there. I can't think of his name right now, but I asked him, or I told him that I was here to audition, and he said, you play the guitar, do you, and sing? I said, yeah. He said, do you have any, what do you call those things where they have any kind of songs that are against anything?
Like a protest song? Like
That's I couldn't think of the word protest. He said, "Did you ever write any protest songs?" and because I played this, and he said, we've already cast the role, but the guy can't play the guitar or sing. And so I said, well, first of all, I'd like to protest this whole situation here, because I came in here to be an actor in this role, and you say it's already taken. I said, so if you're going to reject me, please let me be rejected as an actor, okay? You know, you said I can do guitar and singing. And so he called the secretary, and she brought in a script, and he said, okay, you read the part of so-and-so on here. And the other part was a girl's part. And I was supposed to do a scene with a lady, and he's going to read the part. And I didn't even get a chance to read the script ahead of time. But anyway, we started into it and did the whole scene and everything. And I said, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it, but I got to go now because I only have 40 minutes now to get to the airport and fly back. So thank you, and have a great show. And left real quick, ran down the steps, and my agent was standing outside beside his car to take me to the airport, and I started to get in, and I said, he said, well, just a minute, let me go out. How did you do? And I said, I don't know. You better go up there and see if they're just going to throw me out of the Screen Actors Guild or what, because I didn't behave very nicely when I found out what was going on. So he went up there, and he came back, and he said, okay, get in the car. We really got to hurry now. And I said, well, what did he say? And the guy said, well, that part is already cast, but we need to he cast you in the part of that guy's best friend and tough guy who fights with a bunch of people. So that was the bonanza thing that we did. And in one of those scenes, I was explaining why we were on the property there, that we were young people trying to find a place to settle and all that. And during one of the scenes, oh man, can't think of his name. Who is the star of Bonanza? Who?
Lorne Green?
He was the older guy. The younger guy.
Michael
something.
Michael Landon?
Michael Landon, you're good. You sure you don't want to do this?
I'm an old television buff. I like that kind of stuff.
Okay, well, all right. Yeah, well, Landon's, I was doing this scene talking to his dad, which was, what's his name, Green, Lorne Green. Anyway, he said, so I was talking to his dad, and his dad said, well, I hear you guys are cutting down a lot of our trees in our forest, and we sell those. And I said, well, wait a minute. I made sure they didn't cut down any tree. And while I was doing that, what'd you say the guy's name was?
Michael Landon?
Yeah, Michael. Landon pulled out his gun, held it up toward me, and said, don't you effing talk to my dad like that anymore. Yeah, and he said, I'll blow your effing head off. And remember, we were in the middle of the scene when he did that. So I turned to him and I said, listen, young man. And I reached out and put my hand softly on his wrist to push the gun down. And I said, I'm trying to explain something to your dad nicely, and you should be nice in front of your dad and not use that kind of language, okay? All right, just be quiet now. And then I went back to the scene, okay? And the sound guys and everybody else in the background were back there. They were holding their mouths, trying not to laugh. Yeah, and it was a serious scene, So we finished the scene, and the director said, cut, okay. He laughed up too, and he said, come here, I want to talk to you. And I thought, I must have ruined that scene. And he said, let me ask you a question. Where did you study your acting? Well, actually, I hadn't, if I told him the truth. It's my natural ability. I never had an acting lesson. And he said, "Oh, where did you learn your acting?" I said, "Well, actually, I'm just kind of doing this on my own." He said, "Well, I don't care where you took your lessons, wherever it was. Don't stop doing what you're doing, because I don't know anybody else who could have taken what happened to you there, an interruption to the scene, and you jumped over and finished that and then continued to the scene." So I can't think of anybody else who could have done that. And that was the director, and I said, "Oh, okay, that's nice." Okay, so when I finished that episode of Bonanza, the assistant of the creator of the series, everything, came down and said, "Hey, the boss wants to talk to you." And he said, "Come on with me up to the office." I thought, "Oh boy, I'm in trouble," all those F words and stuff. So I got up there, and he said, "I saw your scene, where there's lots of F words and stuff like that." And I said, "I'm really sorry about it." He said, No, that's great. I just think that was good acting, the way you handled that." And he said, "I got a new role that is going to start on this other TV show I have called Mayf Nutter. And we're introducing a new character on that." I said, "What?" He said, "Hi, Chaparral, and we would like to introduce you as the new lead actor on there. Would you do that?" And I said, "Yeah." So anyway, that's how I became the actor on Hi, Chaparral. And fortunately or unfortunately, during the filming of that, it became the last episode of the High Chaparral before it ever got on the air. So I didn't get to do High Chaparral for a whole big bunch of times.
Oh, that's too bad. But what a compliment.
Well, that was quite a compliment,
Yeah.
for the creator of those two shows to want me to do one on his next show.
Well, Nate, I'm going to say what they used to say in radio. The old clock on the wall is telling me we're going to have to go for today. I've really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate you, and I hope I didn't take up too much of your time.
Oh, I've loved every second. I said, what a blessed life you have. You've been in so many things, and even the little time we've had together doesn't even cover all of it. But I really thank you for doing this.
That's right. Well, I appreciate you very much.
Thank you. And I want to tell everyone that we have a Mayf Nutter collection here, and I'd love for everyone to come and visit it. I hope that you and Lindsay will come one day to come and see our museum on Main Street in Clarksburg.
Oh, yes, I'd like to do that. By the way, after my 83rd birthday, I don't say goodbye to anybody. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
Goodbye. You ready? Okay. Stay happy.
Oh, thank you, May. And remember, make each day count, because you're making history today. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. God bless you.
God bless you, May. Thank you very much.
In the silence of your wildwood, to the rhythm played by every mountain stream, it becomes a lullaby every time that I come home to West Virginia in my dreams. West Virginia mountain melodies, there's a new river singing to me. Oh, this time it's wild and free, your West Virginia mountain melodies. I feel secure in the arms of your green valley. There's a peace you've given me that's yours alone. Take me in like a child to the gentle of your wild West Virginia. I'm coming home. Your West Virginia mountain melodies, there's a new river singing to me. Oh, this time it's wild and free, your West Virginia mountain melodies. West Virginia mountain melody. There's a new river singing to me. All this time it's wild and free, your West Virginia mountain melody.